College basketball, Purdue reigning at the top of the world right now, still with that number one ranking and showing no signs of slowing down at the moment.
No, they were fantastic last night against Maryland. I was really impressed by Maryland last night. I thought they improved significantly since they played Indiana. I thought they were terrible. When they played Indiana, they were just awful. It was hard to watch. But when they played Purdue, and it's crazy because Purdue won that game easily, and the game was never in doubt. But I actually thought Maryland played really well, which is kind of crazy. That is a compliment to Purdue. Maryland's defensive intensity was really, really good the entire game. They made Purdue work for everything it got, but Purdue's ball movement was just so good that it didn't matter. Zach Edey was really good again. That's the thing. Purdue just has a little bit more edge this year than it did last year. I think that's part of it, is that Maryland came into that game thinking that basically they punked Purdue last year. When Purdue went to Maryland last season, they just punked them. It was like a 29-5 run. In the second half of that game, they kind of just shut them down. And I think they thought they were going to be able to do it again. And Purdue just came out from the tip and made sure that didn't happen. And I do think, and I'm on record saying this, I think Lance Jones is a huge part of that. I think he's kind of a missing piece for Purdue this year. He brings just a little extra confidence, a little extra kick to that team when it really needs it. He made those 3 threes at the beginning of the second half. That really kind of stretched the lead out to 20, 22 points and put the game away. And I'm a fan of everything that he does. He's a fantastic on-ball defender. Held Jameer Young down for the most part, even though Jameer Young hit 26, because Jameer Young is awesome. And so, yeah, I'm really impressed by Purdue going on the road in a tough environment and really not even playing with its food, just getting in and getting out with a pretty easy win.
Yeah, it's going to be a special night and a special place, a bad night for Purdue and a great night for another team right now to see who is going to be able to knock the Boilers off, because Zach Edey's not really going to have a bad game. It's kind of hard for him to have a bad game. He just turns around and scores.
Right. And that's how good he is, right? Like, it's the only way you're going to stop Purdue is if you totally stop them from getting the ball inside at all. Like, that's the one thing that Zach Edey can't do, is he's not Malik Renew. He can't get the ball on the perimeter and get himself his own post up. You have to feed the ball inside to him. And that's the one thing he doesn't have in his game. And so if you can stop the ball from going inside, you can make Purdue a little bit one-dimensional, force them to hit those mid-range numbers. But even now, they have a weapon they didn't have last year, which is they have Braden Smith going around those screens, and you can get him going downhill, and that helps too. And that's something they didn't really have nearly as much last year. So it's much harder. I do think what you're saying, we've already seen it. Like the team that has a great game while Purdue struggles, we saw that against Northwestern. Northwestern was able to do that. Purdue went into a buzzsaw in that game with Boo Buie just going absolutely insane. It's going to take your best guard having the night of his life to beat Purdue. And it could happen. Boo Buie already did it. We saw that. But it is going to take your best guard having for Indiana to beat Purdue, Trey Galloway, or if Xavier Johnson's back, Xavier Johnson is going to have to go for 25. That's just how it's going to work to win these games. You are not going to win against Purdue in the paint. You're just not. So
no, that's you can only hope to match.
Yeah. Exactly.
And not only do you have to have a good day from the perimeter yourself, you have to shut theirs down.
Yeah, and you're going to need to be letter perfect in your screens, because Purdue moves the ball so well. You need to be perfect in rotation. You need to be perfect on your switches. When Braden Smith goes over those screens, you have to chase him and chase him and chase him. You need to make sure that he doesn't have space for that 15-foot pull-up that he gets to, because he's able to get to it anytime he wants. He's knocking it down at a rate that basically is among the best in the entire country. When he comes around that screen and gets to that 15 to 17-foot pull-up, it's automatic. It goes in. So you need to follow him around and not let him get that shot off. And it is huge work for any opposing guard. So I'm looking ahead. It's 2 weeks from now that Purdue and IU play in Bloomington. Trey Galloway is going to need to have the game of his life offensively and probably defensively, chasing those guys around. Have Gabe Cupps. If Gabe Cupps is playing at that time, he's going to need to chase Braden Smith around those screens over and over and over again and play the game of his life defensively. And that's just to get a shot to win, right? Because then it's going to be close, and you still have to go make the plays necessary to win it.
Well, tonight Indiana is at Nebraska before we get to that point. So Indiana getting back to Big Ten play, a road game in Lincoln, and a game that while is not expected to be easy, it's a game that Indiana is expected and needs to win.
Expected to win and seems strong. Nebraska is favored by 6 points in this game.
Well, when I say expected to win, if you're an Indiana fan, you have to expect them to win this game, because if they don't, if you can't win at Nebraska, you're not going to be favored to win at Ohio State. You're not going to be favored to win at Illinois. You're not going to be favored to win at Northwestern. You're not going to be favored to win at Iowa. So at Purdue, there's a lot of wins that are just going by the wayside. You have to pick up some wins on the road.
Well, to be fair, I want to point this out. I think someone pointed this out yesterday. According to KenPom, Indiana is only projected to win one game in the month of January.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's because KenPom values Indiana incredibly low right now because Indiana has not blown out bad teams. That the metrics all have Indiana much lower than other teams because they haven't blown out the bad teams. But they've won. Indiana is 25 spots below Michigan in KenPom right now, even though Michigan is 6-7, Indiana is 10-3, and Indiana beat Michigan on the road. The metrics are not. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Indiana is just going to get creamed this Big Ten season. But so far this season, outside of the Auburn game, Indiana has played to the level of its competition almost every single game. Even the UConn game, that game was close into the second half until Malik Renew got in foul trouble and had to leave, and UConn opened it up. Every other game outside of the Auburn game, Indiana has played to the level of its competition. They played up to it, and they played down to it. And so I think we're going to see Indiana figure, I don't know if they'll beat Nebraska. They might lose. Nebraska. I don't know how many people have realized this outside of Nebraska yet. Nebraska is one of the best teams in the Big Ten. I would put them about 5th right now. So they could well lose tonight. It's going to be a very tough game, especially if Khalil Ware is not able to go because he's still sick. But they could lose tonight. I don't think KenPom has it as probably a 7 or 8 point game. I don't think that Indiana gets blown out. And I do think that they do better than 1-7 in this upcoming stretch of games, because what the team that KenPom is projecting to go 1-7 in these next 8 games is the team that almost lost to Morehead State because they didn't have any energy, right? That's not the team Indiana has been when they play major conference opponents. It just isn't. Again, Auburn is what Auburn is, but Indiana was up by 12 in the first 5 minutes of that game. So it's not even that game. It's not like they didn't show up. It was the whole substitution thing in the middle of the first half. I do think that Indiana has found an extra gear when it's had to this year. I mean, even in those games that KenPom is underrating IU for, every time IU is needed to find an extra gear to win a game, they've done it. And except against Kansas when at the end of the game they just ran out of gas. But in these other games against low major teams, there's been a moment every game where Indiana just realizes, hey, we got to go get it done. And they've gone and gotten it done every single time. And that matters. They seem to have this kind of switch on that team where they know when it's time to play. And I do think that they're going to go to Nebraska tonight and they're going to know it's time to play. And they might lose anyway because Nebraska's a good team and they're playing at home. But I don't think that Indiana is the huge underdog that they're being made out to be here.
No, I don't either. And especially the way they have played here of late. Now, can they do that on the road? Specifically their shooting, which has picked up dramatically. Outside shooting has been tremendously better. and something that they're going to have to continue. If you're going to win a game like this on the road, you have to do things like that. But also, Nebraska does not have the talent to deal with both Malik Renew and Khalil Ware. And if you get, then there's the potential of having Xavier Johnson back tonight as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, like, if Xavier Johnson's not back, right? How many minutes go to Anthony Leal in this game? I'm really interested to see that, because obviously I don't think Anthony Leal is going to start, obviously. But I do think they found something in that game against Kennesaw State. They found something with the kind of the 5-out defense they were playing, where you switched everything. I think that was a really effective kind of wrinkle that they threw at Kennesaw State. It changed the game. I do wonder whether they go to that a little bit more in this game if Nebraska is raining 3-pointers, because Nebraska shoots, like Kennesaw State, Nebraska shoots a ton of threes. They don't make a ton of them. They're only like 32.5%, somewhere in there, but they take like 27 a game. So it might be a similar game plan for Indiana this game, is that if you're going to try to switch a lot on the perimeter, because Nebraska is going to run a lot of ball screen action stuff at you. They're going to run a lot of different things to try to get you in rotations and get those open threes. That's kind of the way they play, because they don't have a huge interior presence. That's the other part of this, is that Nebraska's best interior player, Rink Mast, the transfer from Bradley, he's missed the last 2 games. He had knee surgery, kind of minor cleanup knee surgery. And Fred Hoiberg said he's a game time decision for this game. Now he's your best interior player. If he can't go, then Nebraska has to rely almost entirely on the perimeter. So I'm interested to see how Indiana, if that's the case, how Indiana handles that. I think if Xavier Johnson is not ready to go for this game, I think Anthony Leal could get 10, 15 minutes in this one.
Well, he certainly has been showing his worth here of late, and just playing hard, being in the right places at the right times. And in essence, by doing that, giving, like you said, some valuable minutes to Indiana, minutes that they needed.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Like, I know how much people like Gabe Cupps, and I do think he'll be a good player, but there have been times where he's been outmatched defensively this year. Like he got beat off the dribble a fair amount by Kennesaw State. He couldn't keep his guy out of the paint. And as soon as Anthony Leal got in the game, they were able to kind of close down some of those driving lanes. And again, I think Gabe Cupps will be a very good player for Indiana. I don't think he's a very good player or even a good player right now. I think he's kind of swimming right now. He's working
treading
through
water.
Being
treading water.
Exactly. And I think Anthony Leal just feels a little bit more comfortable out there because he's a senior and he's done this. Like, even though he hasn't played in a ton of games, he knows where to be on defense and he knows what he's supposed to be doing. And for as good as Gabe Cupps' instincts are, there's still that level of experience that just help that there's an extra level there where Anthony Leal just kind of knows that's where I'm supposed to be. I need to get there now. And I think that matters.
How has Indiana ever been an underdog at Nebraska in basketball?
Boy, I don't know off the top of my head. Indiana's won 7 in a row against Nebraska. So even if they have been, there's they've gone out and won. So we'll see. But I wouldn't be surprised they were at least once in the twilight of the Archie era. But yeah, it's Nebraska's good. They're 11-2. If you guys, Kaisei Tominaga is one of the most exciting players in the entire country. That dude is just so fun to watch. And they play a really entertaining brand of basketball. So.